Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day. So, I'm just touching on today on some of the reveals from the LVO, specifically the ones related to the Daughters of Khaine. I'll probably be touching on some of the other stuff that was revealed in the live stream, but I kind of want to touch on the Daughters of Khaine first because, mainly because I feel that it covers some stuff that I've actually been predicting for quite some time regarding the faction, especially from a lore and model perspective. Now, not too much was actually revealed. It was really mostly just one model and they're in the upcoming book, but I feel that the implications of what they have are big for the faction overall going forward. So let's just dive into it in a little more detail. So in terms of big reveal for the Daughters of Khaine, the biggest one, well, actually pretty much the only real one, was the reveal of a new named character for the faction, Krethuza the Croneseer. See, if I'm pronouncing that right, great, but if I'm pronouncing that wrong, please forgive me. I always have trouble with these type of names. I promise I'll get it eventually. But anyways, she is probably the most significant new named character for the entire Daughters of Khaine faction after Morathi herself, for one big reason. She is probably the first named character added to the faction who is not a worshiper or follower of Morathi. Actually, in fact, from a narrative perspective, she now exists as a direct rival to Morathi Khaine for control of the Daughters of Khaine now. Because another thing is she does not actually worship or follow Khaine. She actually is the high priestess of the elven goddess Morehag. And again, forgive me if I'm butchering that name. I will get it eventually. Now, from a narrative perspective, she's being introduced as a new faction within the Daughters of Khaine, who basically kind of sprung up in regards to Morathi ascending to godhood. So basically, these are not, I guess you could say, while there are Khainites as there are in the Daughters of Khaine faction, they're kind of more like Hegenites, I guess you would describe them, in that they're now following Morehag more so than Khaine in before. Now this is actually a very interesting thing because because usually from all the reveals of the Daughters of Khaine, they've kind of always doubled down on the whole Khainite influences for the faction, but now the Daughters of Khaine actually have followers who follow a different goddess now. That's actually a pretty good thing too, and also just for the sheer fact is the model is amazing. I think it was one of the most celebrated models in the entire stream. It was really, and honestly, I can see why. Finally, they're kind of going for more of that crow aesthetic rather than that whole, I don't know, I guess that batwing lizard thing they've been going with before. I don't know why more people don't go for the bird aesthetic more. I guess it's a preference thing. I kind of prefer the more bird one, but yeah, whatever. So, what are the lore implications of what just happened? Well, basically, one thing that's actually been pushed very much to the forefront, especially in the most recent battle tome for the Daughters of Khaine, was a growing schism within the Daughters of Khaine itself. You see, when Morathi ascended to godhood, she basically stopped pretending that she was just the high priestess of Khaine, and she was trying to pass herself off as essentially the second coming of Khaine, or she was Khaine all along, or whatever, she's in charge now. So some of her most advent followers kind of went with it, either just going with, well, she's our leader, we're going to go with her anyway, or, you know what, she's just Khaine reborn, let's just start following her. But the problem was, though, there was a significant amount of the Daughters of Khaine and their followers and adjutants who basically went, oh, okay, wait, what's going on here? You are not looking to bring back Khaine. That was the whole point of us, pouring our devotion and blood into these cauldrons, was so you can bring back Khaine, not make yourself Khaine 2.0 or Dollar Store Khaine or whatever you want to call it. So this led to I guess a few acts of open rebellion which were put down, but also a growing resistance movement to Morathi herself. In the books itself, these were the most significant ones fighting against her were known as the Crone Heralds. They were a group of Daughters of Khaine who, in addition to following Khaine, they were also worshippers of the elven goddess Morehag. So, the goddess of prophecy. And they were trying to use that ability to try and, usurp Morathi, and they were secretly gathering forces, gathering retainers, gathering loyalists who could, eventually challenge Morathi more directly. However, they were more of an underground movement. They didn't really have any real central figure. They were kind of always more portrayed as, kind of like an underground shadow cabal that was trying to undermine her. However, with Crethusa's reveal, however, this changed things significantly. Now, I initially thought that this was just going to be just like a background thing, but with Crethusa now coming into the picture, all these loyalists now have a figure to revolve around now, and not just any charismatic leader. Crethusa has a direct tie to Moriheg herself. And that means that they essentially have a goddess, well, in any, even if in a diminished capacity, backing them up directly. And now that they're getting legitimate followers flocking to them in probably greater numbers, this is actually this is where the talks for in the past of the whole schism growing between the Daughters of Khaine, well, now it looks like it's going to become more of a forefront, which I really do like, because I was afraid that was always just going to be like a background thing, and that it was always just going to focus on Morathi just beating every bit of opposition down with no challengers. I assume that's what they were going to do, but you know what? No, they didn't just leave that as a background bit. They are actually diving headfirst into the schism within the Daughters of Khaine. Now, obviously, I don't think she's as powerful as Morathi yet, but the fact that she can challenge her even in the capacity she is now means is that her hold over the Daughters of Khaine is now going to be, at least as an overall faction, is going to be much weaker going into the new edition and probably the next book. So that's probably going to be a new, internal political lore of the Daughters of Khaine, in that they're having like a quasi, well, they're also still fighting chaos and death and all those bad guys, but internally they're facing a major religious, political, and societal upheaval, with Crethusa being a legitimate alternative to the bloodthirsty nature of Morathi. And from what we've heard so far, it appears to be she's much less ruthless, at least from what we've seen so far, than Morathi is. So she might actually offer an interesting alternative to, let's say, their allies in order, than just, okay, well, why? Maybe we don't have to put up with a murderous goddess so much. Maybe we can just go with Bird Lady here, who doesn't seem quite as insane. But we'll see how that ends up turning out. So what does this all mean going forward? Well, I think there's some interesting things that came out of it. Now, I know the reveal was actually relatively small, and honestly it was. But I think we can get some clues on what's going to happen going forward. I think, as I mentioned, I think this is going to bring a new dynamic to the Daughters of Khaine. See, from a narrative perspective, I've always kind of just seen the Daughters of Khaine kind of just overall just, murder crazed, collecting the blood, sacrificing the blood, all hail Khaine, all hail Khaine. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but I did have some issues with that portrayal, because it kind of led to aspects of them being a little bit Flanderized, especially in the hands of lesser writers. They were all just blood-crazed maniacs most of the time, and I guess devoted warriors the other half of the time. There was a very big binary to them. Now, this, however, the idea of them being followers of prophecy, trying to leverage fate with with a new goddess on the board here, I think that could be an interesting dynamic. Now, they can because they can still be berserkers, they can still be warriors, but but perhaps they might not necessarily have to be obsessed with spilling the blood of their enemies and all happenstance here. Perhaps this could mean that from a narrative perspective, maybe they're more about making sure their best intended future comes to pass, or working within the realms of prophecy to get themselves ahead so they can take down Morathi. So for those of us who maybe like the faction but don't really like the fact that they're Morathi, she's so very evil and manipulative. Well, now we can use a more maybe lawful neutral instead of chaotic neutral we've been having before. So by lawful neutral, I mean our new named character Cthulhu. So I think that's an interesting way we could look at the new dynamic. And also, this could mean that going forward, the book is less obsessive in terms of everything revolving around Marathi, like at least in terms of the battle tome. Like I just kind of feel like especially in lore perspectives, like every single coven within the Daughters of Khaine, they're all about serving Marathi or doing things for Marathi or being manipulated by Marathi. Don't get me wrong, I like the character. I find Marathi a very fascinating character, and I think she brings a lot of interesting dynamics to the overall Grand Alliance of Order. However, I just feel like, narratively speaking, she kind of strangleholds her faction too much. The same thing with it's like with Nagash, back in the old Legions of Nagash book. Like everything revolved around him, like Nagash, before, during the Soul Wars. Like every Death faction revolved around him pretty much all the time. Now I feel perhaps, we can create our own narratives now of Daughters of Khaine who perhaps are more willing to, work and help others. That's not just involving killing chaos or collecting blood or serving Marathi in some abstract sense. I just feel like it adds a more narrative fluff to it, if you know what I mean. And also, as I mentioned before, I feel it brings a new dynamic to how the Daughters of Khaine interact with the forces of order. So, for example, yes, so Marathi is still very much allied to the greater forces of order, but how are they going to react to this new schism that's forming within the Daughters of Khaine? Like, are they going to try and leverage that to try and get more advantages over Marathi? Will they try supporting this new upstart within the Daughters of Khaine? Maybe seeing her as maybe a more reliable ally than Marathi, who, yes, she's allied, but she's also betrayed us multiple times, and, even though she did come to our aid in the end, I don't know, can we really ever trust her again after that? Like, maybe, I'm just saying, maybe they might start seeing this new upstart and in the Crone Seer as, maybe she's a safer option going forward. Now, I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but I'm just saying the option is, the idea is there. Now, obviously, they could just go with the whole thing where she's in some ways worse than Marathi. I don't know, but I'm just saying, until, it's the whole, Schrodinger's cat thing, until we open the box, we don't know which way she's going. In addition to that here, I do feel like this will likely, whatever way they end up going with her, we definitely will find out in the 5th Dawnbringers book. As it's been already mentioned, the 5th book has already been spoiled. Now, I don't know if this is going to be the last book in the series, but I do find it's a little weird that they would show this when the 4th book isn't even out yet, technically. Which leads me to believe, I think there may be, the reason they're doing this, there may be some shipping or manufacturing stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, because this is something similar that happened during COVID with the whole Broken Realms thing, where they were showing the 3rd book when the 2nd book wasn't even out yet. So I think maybe there's something going on with the printing distribution. I don't know, but I'm really looking forward to it here too. Now, a lot of people seem to think this will be the last book in the series. I don't know if there'll be a 6th book. But honestly, if this is the last book, I hope it ties everything up neatly, because a lot of people felt that Broken Realms ended just a little too abruptly. So I hope this one leads to something a little more I'm not even saying finite, but it's just a little cleaner than what Broken Realms Kragnos did. In addition to this too, I'm also hoping for some new releases in regards to this as well, because the reason I have this is too, so far she's the only new model that's been revealed, but does this mean we could be potentially seeing new Daughters of Khaine that have more influences from Moreheg than Marathi? Because the whole thing with all the new models we've been getting, most of them involved around influences from Marathi. We had the Snake Ladies, we had the Bat Girls. You know, we had like the shadow ninjas. I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying they're bad. I actually quite like them, but I just mean, like, will we get more influences that kind of revolve more around the Crone Seer? Like, will we see more, like, more crow themed Daughters of Khaine? Will there be like maybe like hybrid Daughters of Khaine with, like, like bird wings instead of bat wings? Like, will we be getting, like, like a whole, like, sub faction, like, that is complete, that is more in line with the Crone Seer come out, that's less so with what Marathi's doing? Like, I don't know. I mean, we might only get this might just be the only actual new model release in regards to the followers of Moray Heg. But I would be very surprised if I wouldn't be surprised, sorry, if they added some new stuff in that regard. Now, as for some concerns I have, well, okay, well, the one thing I think everyone's already said, so I'm just gonna say it too. There's only, so far, it looks like there are only one model release so far. Now, this is obviously just to coincide with the release of the fifth Dawnbringer book. Now, that's not to say there won't be new releases come here. Like, case in point, right here, the first Dawnbringer book teased, like, the Marrow Scroll Herald for the Flesh Eater Courts, and that ended up being, like, basically, and that eventually led to, like, a whole range refresh. So there's nothing to say that that Krelusa is the only model release we're going to see. However, GW has had an issue, and some people will argue maybe it's not an issue, but they have done this whole thing where they basically just release a new battle tome, and there's only one new model in the book. So some people are kind of wondering, well, when the new Daughters of Khaine comes, is this the only new model we're getting? Now, she's a very good model, don't get me wrong, and I would be fine with her just being released, but I don't know. I think the Daughters of Khaine is a faction that could probably be fine with getting a few new kits in it, and like I was saying earlier, maybe some new stuff that actually has more of, like, the Moray Heg theme, like, instead of, like, bat and snake theme, maybe more crow, or maybe crow or raven theme, to just add a little variety into the faction, especially because it would also really help narratively wise to kind of create this, really drive home the idea that the Daughters of Khaine are having a schism. Everyone's picking a side, so it would just be, I think it would just be narratively and visually appropriate. Now, another thing I have an issue is that I'm worried this is going to be one of those things that comes off with a lot of potential, but then ends up just fizzling out in the background. Like, for example, like, okay, there's an official challenger to Morathi Khaine. Okay, where is this going to go? Like, I can definitely see them just, like, having her go in here just to create drama within the Daughters of Khaine faction, but then overall they're just going to at the end of the day, they're going to just have Morathi Khaine have no real repercussions from this, or suffer no real losses from this, and will obviously, and then inevitably come out on top. Because, let's be honest right here, GW definitely likes the character. She's very an iconic character, and when corporate makes decisions based on, marketing and, test audiences, it kind of just gives the ending away where, the more legacy character just basically just gets off scot-free and just always wins in the end. Like, I'm not saying that she has to, like, kill Morathi or anything, but I just don't want this to be a thing where they're just teasing some big showdown and it ends up just being, just a glorified slap fight, and which Morathi will just win in the end because she's more popular at the moment. So now, at the moment, though, because from what I've been seeing because what I've been seeing so far, I think she might, like, Rutha here, might actually get definitely a following building up in due time, because people were really liking the model design, and that's the first step. First the model design, then we get some good writing for her, and I think we might have another new legacy character on our hands. So let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. And again, just to drive home the point here too, GW, if you're listening to this here too, you don't have to, show unlimited you know, legacy character favoritism. You know, you can let the new whippersnappers on the block have their time in the sun too. Just saying. I'm not saying I'm not saying we should get rid of, you know, Nagash. I'm not saying we should get rid of Morathi. I'm not saying we should get rid of Archeon or, you know, any of those people. But, you know, it's okay to just let them, you know, have a little, you know, give a little bit more time to the newbies, you know, especially in a faction that they dominate so heavily. Like, you know, Morathi really has in the past been very dominant within the Daughters of Khaine. I just feel it might be a good idea to, you know, have some balance within the faction with new leaders rising. Again, feel free to disagree with that. That's just my personal opinion, and I know some people actually really like the Morathi is a big influence on the Daughters of Khaine. That's just my personal opinion for like a more of a meta narrative sense. Anyway. So overall, I feel that even though we got relatively little reveals in terms of what the Daughters of Khaine are going to be getting in the future, I feel like there's definitely some hints going forward that this definitely is going to flesh the faction out more and bring a new flavor to the faction overall. Now, so far we only know that one model has been revealed, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the only thing coming. As we said, the Marrow Scroll heralded, sorry, the Flesh Eater Court's refresh. So maybe we might even get some new models coming up soon. And ultimately, yes, from a lore perspective, having an official challenger to Morathi herself really will help, like, you know, give new dynamics in the Daughters of Khaine themselves, especially internally, and also allows people who, you know, maybe aren't really a fan of what Morathi's doing with the faction overall to, you know, be able to play the faction, but not necessarily be loyal to her specifically, which I feel is really good for, you know, like your dudes makers for the armies, you know. Like, now we're Daughters of Khaine, but we're not the blood-seeking kinda. Well, we are, but, you know, not really, kinda. Anyway, overall, I think it's looking pretty good. I'm really looking forward to where they're going to go narratively in the 5th Dawnbringers book, and I'll be touching also on some more of the LVO reveals very soon. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and have a nice day.